don't do this, don't do that. Let's bust some more seed starting myths. I don't know why, but I have a hard time sowing multiple seeds in one cell. I always ask myself, what if they all sprout? I don't have room or need for 50 pepper plants. And I'm certainly not going to kill most of these little plants. I'm not a monster. Consider these few thoughts. If you only sow a single seed per cell, you might end up with a bunch of empty cells. Germination rate of 100%, while not completely unheard of, is actually pretty tough to achieve, even with your freshest, brand new seeds straight from the packets. And if you save your seeds and you use them year after year, your germination rate is probably going to get down to as low as 50 to 60%. And any lower than that, you should just be tossing your seeds and starting fresh. That means that for every 2 or 3 seeds that you sow, you should only realistically expect that 1 or 2 are going to germinate. And if they all end up germinating, then that's great. Now you can decide if you want to separate them and grow more plants this season, or if you want to select the best looking seedling and compost the others. 2, you bought a seed packet that contains about 30 seeds. What's the use in just sowing 3 seeds every year and stretching out the life of the packet for a decade? And I'm talking to myself here. This packet is 8 years old. It cost me $1.59. I still have seeds left, but I don't use them anymore because the germination rate has gotten so low. I would have been better off using all the seeds within the first year or 2, even though that would have meant an early end to some of the seedlings. And 3, some plants simply do better when grouped. A lettuce mix absolutely should be grown in close quarters. Same with radishes, carrots, and bunching onions. Some garden favorites even have their own built-in crowding mechanism. Let's get sciencey for a minute.
Science!
Here are some fun words: monogerm and multigerm. Now most seeds out there that you're going to be planting, like this pepper seed, are monogerm. That means that they have one embryo, it's one seed, and it's going to create one plant. But seeds like beets are actually collections of seeds. There are 2 to 5 seeds inside of each multi-germ beet seed. Do you see where I'm going here? Beets naturally bunch just by function of the way that their seeds develop. So if you're worried about crowding your beets, don't. They've got it covered. Another multi-germ crop is chard, which will grow multiple plants just like a beet seed will. Now, some people will tell you that as your beets and chard start to grow, you should be thinning out the plants to provide more room for the strongest of the bunch. I've never done that before, and I've never been disappointed in my yield. Different seeds require different temperature for germination. Heating mats have become a staple in many gardeners' indoor setup, and for good reason. Without a mat, the wide range of germination requirements means that you could struggle out of the gate when starting some of your seeds. But some well-meaning folks can take it too far, and they'll tell you that once your seeds germinate, you should keep them on the heating mat. Well-meaning, but, wrong. In fact, once they emerge, most seedlings need around the same temperature in order to grow big and strong, between 65 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 to 21 degrees Celsius, which is probably in and around the average growing space's room temperature. Too much heat underneath these tender seedlings could dry them out really quickly and might also damage the roots. So once you've got germination, take them off the heat, give them a drink, and put them under lights. Speaking of watering, one of the rules that got pounded into my head as a beginning gardener was,
whatever you do, never, never, never top water.
So I didn't. I started watering from the bottom at all times. I bought self-watering pots. I looked into installing drip irrigation systems. I think I might have overdone it. Think about it this way. What happens when it rains? I don't know about you, but where I live, the rain hardly ever bubbles up from underground. And just as with most gardening myths, there are good intentions behind the myth that you should never top water. Your garden is filled with bacteria and fungi. Some of them really good for your plants, but others not so great. And if you're watering your plants from up high and the water splashes down onto the soil and then knocks some of that soil onto the leaves and stems of your plant, it can transfer some of this bacteria and some of this fungi that could spread sickness or disease to your plants. And this is good reason to remove the bottom 12 inches or 30 centimeters of stems and leaves from your most susceptible plants in your garden, like tomatoes. It enables you to more easily control the amount of soil that makes it onto your plants, which in turn helps keep your crops healthy. When it comes to caring for my seedlings, I tend to bottom water just because it's easier. Rather than just watering each individual plant, I can just put some water in the tray and know that each pot will absorb what it needs. Now I could top water if I wanted to, and so can you. Just be careful. Remember, these are brand new plants. Try to avoid watering directly overhead. Just add the water to the soil, not the plant itself. I've knocked down many seedlings by not being attentive while top watering. And some advice when it comes to top watering your seedlings is this: get a fan. Remember, we're inside, and your seedlings can't benefit from the breeze they'll rely on once transplanted into your garden. When starting seeds, you're doing your best to mimic the natural environment. You're giving your seedlings light, soil, and water. Give them some wind as well. It'll help knock off any of the water on wet leaves, and it'll also keep mold at bay in your growing medium. Another water-related myth that I'll include here, but not get into much, is this idea that you should be watering your seedlings every day, sometimes even multiple times a day. Be attentive. Water your plants because they need water, not because of some arbitrary schedule. The thing you should be doing multiple times a day is checking on your seedlings to see how they're doing. Do they look like they need water? Give them some water. I actually find that plants are more forgiving and are more likely to bounce back if underwatered versus being overwatered. Don't drown your plants. They're going to have a really hard time bouncing back if they're overwatered. The last seed starting myth that we'll bust today has to do with when to pot up your seedlings. It's so fun watching this year's garden start before our very eyes, but be careful not to get too overeager with your seedlings. Some people will even tell you that as soon as your seedlings emerge, you should transplant them into a larger pot. Don't do that. These pepper seedlings emerged a week or so ago. I started them under a dome and on a heating mat. And they've emerged nicely. They're looking really good, but they're super vulnerable right now. They barely even have a root system. Typically, you want to wait until your seedlings have gotten a chance to establish more roots before you put them through the stress of potting up. Take a look at their leaves and let that be your guide. These little guys, called cotyledons, are the first leaves to emerge from the seed. These are the embryonic leaves, the little leaves that poke through the soil at germination. Give your seedlings a little bit of time and care, and you'll start to see more leaves grow from the center point where the cotyledons meet. These are the second leaves, also known as true leaves. These leaves actually look like the plant that you're growing, and these are the leaves that will continue to emerge moving forward as your plant grows. And you're going to want to give your true leaves a chance to grow out a little bit before potting up your seedling. Before transplanting your seedlings into a new pot, you should see 2 full sets of true leaves. That'll be the indication to you that the root system is strong enough to handle transplanting. I hope this information was helpful as you continue to get your seeds started for the coming growing season. Keep at it and you'll be harvesting in no time. Happy growing.